Well, welcome to The Way It Should Be. I'm Dean.
I'm JD, and we have Miss Kayla Lain with us today.
Hello, Kayla.
Hi, thank you for having me on.
Yeah, awesome. We been looking forward to it. I ran into you in town and wanted to get you on here. I guess tell us who you are, kind of descript, or what you're doing now, and so forth.
Sure. My name is Kayla Lain. I've lived in Godley almost 5 years. My husband and I bought a small little hobby farm, and we dabble in horses and chickens and goats. I'm a mom of 3. I have an 11-year-old boy, a 9-year-old girl, and an 8-month-old girl. And I'm also a homeschooling mother for the last year and a half. And I ran for school board in 2022 and lost. And I ran again this year in May of 2023 and won. So I am a Godley ISD school board trustee. I'm also engaged in political activist down in Austin. I work with a group called Families Engaged, and we work with legislators to review bills and to give ideas and what we like, what we don't like on upcoming legislation down there in Austin. And really, my main focus is in education because I am a homeschooling mom, and my kids are still, in the K through 12 education age range. And so I'm heavily focused on education and the legislation that affects that. And so, like I said, I've been a school board trustee here in Godley since May of this year. And I'm just trying to do my civil duty to make sure that my kids enjoy the same freedoms that I have gotten to enjoy my life.
Awesome. Why? What made you decide to run for school board?
Well, I actually got involved in politics. Well, I've dabbled a little bit in politics since high school, but I really got involved at the local level during COVID. I used to think that it only mattered what happened at the state level and the federal level until COVID, and I realized how much local politics affects our everyday lives. And I've truthfully learned that it's more important on our everyday lives what happens locally than the state or the federal level. And so I got involved in school board politics during COVID because of the mask mandate on our children. And my kids were actually the only 2 kids in Godley ISD that never put a mask on their face. I got a medical exemption for them, and I fought the school to accept that. And so my kids never had a mask, but I saw the psychological impact of masks on other children. So I was heavily involved in advocating for those masks to be lifted and to be removed. So I got a petition together, had a bunch of signatures, worked for months to be able to present it to the school board. And eventually we got masks off our kids much earlier than a lot of ISDs did. So that's really what how I got started.
So you said May of this year you took over, or you won your spot. How do you say that? You
got elected.
Got elected.
Yes.
Yeah, and so. But you also told us you're a homeschooling mom. So I know we've had Morgan on here, and Morgan is a school board member, and her children don't go to the ISD where she's I think her children go to a private school. So I know she had told us she had received some pushback because people saying, why do you care why do you want to be on the school board if your kids don't go there? And I'm sure you've, matter of fact, I've seen some of that. So I guess in your words, can you explain to us why you want to be a school board and also a homeschooling parent?
Sure. When we moved to Godley, my son was in kindergarten, my daughter was in I had that backwards. When we moved to Godley, my daughter was in kindergarten and my son was in 1st grade. And they did go to Godley ISD all the way up until 2nd and 3rd grade. My son was held back, so he actually repeated 1st grade in Godley. And when I pulled my kids out, my son was in 3rd grade and my daughter was in 2nd grade. My son has autism, and so in the special ed arena, I'm highly familiar with IEP meetings, and so Unfortunately, the school district was unable to get him on grade level for reading. It was something that was a priority to me, and it was not a priority for whatever reason to the special education department here. And I honestly just got tired of fighting them. So I decided to pull him out and homeschool him. And if I was going to pull him out, I had to pull my daughter out. And so I've been homeschooling both of them since be the beginning of the 2021 school year. So this is my second year homeschooling, and I did it mainly for educational reasons. My son was really behind, and I have homeschooled him for a year and a half, and he's on grade level for the first time since he started school. So it's been highly beneficial to him, and I do get a lot of pushback, but what I tell everyone is that education is not one size fits all, and all kids do not learn the same. And unfortunately, in public school, the model is a one-size-fits-all model. And I understand the reason for that. I mean, you have one teacher for 22, 23 kids, and it's impossible for one teacher to individualize for every single child's needs. So I understand the reason it is the way it is, but my son was just really struggling. And for me, reading and literacy is super important. So that's one reason I started homeschooling them.
Is there a time, do you think that you'll ever put them back in school, or homeschool is great now? And just to be fair and honest, if I have kids in high school, middle school, and I think if I had everything to do over again now, we would probably just have homeschooled from the start. Maybe pushed for some of the, I don't know what they call it here, like the Tim Tebow thing where you can homeschool and your kids can still play sports in the school. I know that's a thing that the school board could pass, but if we had to do it all over again, I think we would definitely homeschool them. So, just curious. Yeah.
It would certainly be easier to put my kids in public school. However, because I am super involved legislatively in Austin, I am very concerned at the direction the state is going in our public education system. And I'm concerned to put my kids back in that. It's not only a Godley ISD issue, it's statewide. So at this point, I don't see myself putting my kids back in the public education system unless there are some major changes, and I don't see that happening.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we just had Todd on here, and I said this earlier, as I've said this now twice, but Todd, retired school teacher, and absolutely is against having kids in public school. And it was his, he just recently retired, and he's like, it's gone bad. Or it may have always been bad. I think it's more of the way he said it.
It's definitely gotten worse.
Yeah, definitely gone worse. And then when we had Morgan on here, she said, if you think that your little bitty town isn't experiencing some of this stuff, you're wrong. It's everywhere across the board.
And I think Texas, the reason that we are in such a bad spot is I'm a native Texan myself, born and raised here. I was actually born and raised in Fort Worth. And I think that Texans are so naive that they think, oh, we live in the greatest state. It's never going to happen here. You know, we're super conservative. And so there's a lot of lazy Texans that don't get involved in politics. They don't get involved in public education because they think that we have the greatest state and we're untouchable and it's never going to happen here. And the fact of the matter it is here. And I hate to break it to native Texans, but it's not Californians that are moving in. Some of my greatest patriotic freedom fighters that I have are from California. And some of the laziest people I meet in politics are native Texans. And that I'm speaking for my own family. They think I'm crazy because of the fight that I do. But I honestly think Texans get in their own way because they think that, well, we live in small towns and, I'm out of the inner city, so that doesn't bother me. And so what I see down in Austin is a bunch of people playing conservatives, and they don't vote conservatively. To me, actions speak louder than words. And so it is a statewide issue. And our academic scores across the state of Texas are awful. I mean, we're in the bottom tier of all 50 states as far as academics goes. And Godley ISD is right there in that bottom tier too. And so I would love to see that improved. And it's not a teacher problem. I've met some great teachers. Truthfully, that's why my kids were in Godley ISD as long as they were, because I've thought about homeschooling for years and years and years, but my kids had really good teachers. But unfortunately, the pushback I had from the administration was more than it. They go above the teachers. The teachers can only do what the administration allows them to do. And so I had great teachers that agreed with me, but said, unfortunately, my hands are tied because I'm at the mercy of the administration. And
we need this income. That's that's the thing we run into. I mean, even we've talked about that. Even in some of the stuff we've run into in our job, there people have done stuff that they absolutely didn't agree with.
Well, you got bills to pay.
But you got bills to
kids
pay,
to feed. So what are
yeah.
you going to do?
Yeah.
So we've talked about it before, or you mentioned it several times. What are the biggest problems you see coming out of Austin right now? What are the biggest challenges for school districts, parents, children? What are the big issues right now that you see?
Some of the major issues that I've seen are the changes to the TEKS. And for people who don't know what that is, that's the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills. That's what teachers have to teach to. And so unfortunately, it goes well beyond core academics. Teachers now are required to teach character education, sex education, health curriculum, and it goes well beyond math, reading, writing. And so there is so much put on these teachers that they're required to teach that it's kind of that saying, if you try to be the master of all, you're going to be the master of none. So they're trying to do too many things. And unfortunately, what we see, pushed down from Castle is for schools to eventually be a one-stop shop.
What is Castle?
So Castle, that is kind of at the federal level, but they push a lot of this. If you ever hear whole child, whole school, that comes from Castle. And it's basically it's an equity piece, to be honest, but it's pushing for a school to be the one-stop shop for healthcare, for dental care, for childcare, for mental health, for psychologists. So it's, unfortunately, education has gone well beyond the realm of their lane. And and the reason that they do it and why they think it's necessary is because, we have poor kids whose parents aren't involved, or we have kids that are only being raised by the school system and their parents aren't involved. And so maybe they're using that small 2% of students and they're pushing that on all of students. So that's one of the biggest issues, is that schools are required to do stuff that's well outside of the realm of education. Another issue is the school vouchers that's going on right now. I know SB1 did not pass, and then they had HB1, and thank goodness it has not passed either. As a homeschooling mom, it sounds amazing to be able to keep more of my money to educate my kids, but we all know the government does nothing without strings. And one of the reasons I pulled my kids out of government education, which is public education, is because of the strings, and their hands were tied for what the government mandated as well. So anyone who thinks they're going to get voucher money from the government and have no accountability and no strings attached is highly naive. And so the problem with government education is that it's less locally controlled at the independent school district level, and it's more state controlled. And that is what's wrong with education. So thinking that the government's going to solve the problem they created is not... Yeah. I mean, I don't want to say the definition of insanity, but the definition of insanity. Yes.
Yeah, we've talked several times about the voucher system. I feel like I said, Morgan, and then with Todd, with people that are that would know. And I think I would have been. I think I still in some way am. I think voucher systems could be good. I don't think they will be. I want
the only
them
way
to
they
be
can
good.
be is you have to make sure the state is not going to control what you're teaching.
Right.
I mean, at the heart of the voucher is you're already paying the taxes for these schools. But if your school district sucks, the school sucks, you should be able to take your money somewhere else. And if that's homeschooling or some kind of cooperative thing that parents set up, that's fine. You should be able to do that. But like she said, the state is never going to relinquish control over what you teach your kids.
Something I would love to see happen, but it never will because the government wants control, is, how we have a homestead exemption. I think there should be a homeschool or a private school exemption.
There should be.
Where it just takes money off the top of the value you pay on your home. So you just keep more of that money. The government never touches it. The way the vouchers and the educational savings account works is that tax money, you're paying it anyway. It sits in a government account and then they distribute it as they will, right? But if it's some kind of exemption that you just pay less in taxes, then that's true freedom because you get to keep more of your money and decide where it goes, and you don't have to worry about government strings and mandating what you teach your kids.
Yeah, ideally that's the way it would work. It's not a voucher. It's just you just don't pay the tax.
You just
anymore.
opt out of it.
Yeah, you're not.
opt
Your
out.
kids aren't in the school district, so why should you have to pay for it?
Right.
Of course, that always opens up that other thing. Well, what about people that don't have
Retirees
kids?
and- yeah.
Retirees. Well,
You don't
because you make the exemption for people with kids in school. They're going, well, if you don't have your kids in school, then if you're homeschooling, then you shouldn't have to pay the tax. Well, then you run into the problem. Well, I don't have kids at all. Like I don't have any kids, so I don't feel like I should be paying for schools.
And I truly don't think that it's a tax issue or a money funding issue. I think that we have some politicians with their hands in the cookie jar, if you will. I mean, I thought lottery was going to pay for public schools, right? I mean, where does all that money go? Cigarette tax, all these other taxes that were supposed to fund public schools and solve these issues. It hasn't lowered any of our property taxes. They go up and up every year. So sometimes I just wonder where this money's going.
It's a lot of it's wasted. I guarantee it is. Because you can definitely educate people for less money than what they're doing. There's charter schools that do it for less money.
Yeah. I send my kids to a homeschool co-op, and this is our second year there. 3 days a week, they have certified public education retired teachers or teachers that have young kids that are able to teach part-time and take their kids with them to school. And I only pay $375 a month per kid.
Wow.
And my son is getting a fabulous education. I homeschool myself Mondays and Fridays. They teach them Tuesday through Thursday. It does not cost that much money. And they're literally taught in a barn dominium. I mean, you don't need fancy buildings. You don't need any of this stuff to educate kids. So like I said, I don't think it's a funding issue and it's not a tax issue. It's a waste issue.
Yeah. And then we also saw during COVID that you can do things online. The way the school district set it up, it was poorly executed, but if someone did it the correct way, it would work. You could actually do it for a lot less money if you really wanted to.
Yeah, and we saw some of that stuff with the bond stuff that went through here with people saying, I don't want my kids in portable buildings or whatever the case may be. And I think probably all of us, I don't know.
I went to school in portable buildings.
I had several classes in portable buildings, and I never thought, oh, this is so bad. I think there was a Facebook post, and my wife, who would probably call herself an amateur meteorologist. There was someone that had said, we're going to put portable building, like a tornado attracting portable buildings is what they said. My wife was like, I did not know that tornadoes were like portable buildings. Here we go.
Well, that the whole saying is God hates trailer parks because the tornadoes always seem to hit a trailer park.
But that's what it was like. Are you serious? That's I feel that so much of this wants to be, we want to have this mega state of the art. No, that's even wrong.
Yeah,
this school that is winning architecture awards.
Yeah. Look at this, the high school that's being built here. I mean,
more about building buildings and I hesitate to say building character because I don't feel like it's the state's or the school's responsibility to build character in my child. That's my responsibility. But there's lots of classes that are offered and taught that I don't feel like it's their position to be teaching or whatever. But it just so much is like to me, so much of it opened my eyes that this is a business, that the public schools are a business. It's anyway, I can go on and on.
Well, and there's a lot of talk too about, legislators that want to make gambling legal here and, have a WinStar in Texas because that's going to fund public schools. And, I mean, I'm from the government and I'm here to help, right? Fingers crossed. I don't see it.
Well, and
yeah, it's just not going to generate that much revenue. I think I looked it up once where I think the lottery sends maybe $1 billion a year toward education, which is when you look at the cost of education in just the state, that's not even close to funding anything.
Right.
I don't think that would barely.
It could be. It's because it could be if funds were
not
placed.
$1 billion. It's going to cost way more than $1 billion. Even if you were able to cut the cost way down, just for the sheer number of students that there are.
Okay. Yeah. I'm just saying if money, in my opinion, was appropriated right. but maybe it couldn't go a long way, but it could go somewhere.
It could
I'm
go
not
somewhere,
opposed.
yeah.
I'm not opposed to a casino.
I'm not opposed either.
I wish there was a casino. I'd be so broke.
Go to WinStar and look at every plate in there. It's
Yeah.
a Texas plate.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. No, I'm not opposed either if that money really went to fund public education, but I don't see them doing that because, like I said, there's politicians with their hands in the cookie jar and
Yeah.
the money's not allocated properly.
right.
That's
yeah.
exactly it.
Yeah, and it won't be.
No.
It won't
Well,
be.
anytime the government's taking money, it never gets where it's supposed to go. Not all of it's going to get to where it needs to go. It's got to go through this thing, and by the time somebody's touched it 7 or 8 times and taken their little cut out of it.
Yeah, I saw a thing today. I don't know how true it is, but I'm gonna spout it anyway.
Do
but
it. We're all about that.
But it said child support. I guess it funds judges' retirement in a way. I guess in a way, maybe it's the interest or whatever they're holding on child support going on. So it's just another thing, right, that goes through something else. I don't know. Fact check me on that if you want.
Yeah,
I don't know
I
how
don't
true that is, but because it was, it's a social media post. I don't have a clue how true it wouldn't shock me if it was true because someone always has their hand in the cookie jar. But that's a whole nother.
Back to the lottery thing. The Fort Worth ISD alone spends over $1 billion just on their school district.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was that high, but
No,
they're
yeah.
looking at it right now. That's what
Wow.
it is. Yep.
So, what are some obstacles that you've ran up against since taking office? Did we
Yes.
since
Yes.
taking office? That
You're so stupid.
I'm very dumb, very dumb. No, what are some obstacles that you didn't see
Foresee.
yourself running? Yeah, foresee.
Well, my first meeting where I was sworn in and took the dais, I was thrown into a policy change debate that apparently I had not been a part of conversations. They said they had been talking about it for 3 months, but I'd been to every school board meeting and hadn't heard these conversations take place. But they were wanting to change the policy to get an item on the agenda. So before, for the history of Godley ISD, any school board trustee could request an item to be added to a future agenda. And as a trustee, that's the only way in a public meeting that you can talk about anything is if it's on the agenda. That's per the Texas Open Meetings Act. So they're talking about changing that my first meeting to be where now 3 school board members are required to get anything on the agenda. So I'm only one board member. So that took away my ability to get anything on the agenda. It controlled what I was able to say and talk about in a public meeting. And so that was honestly my biggest obstacle because I ran on all these things that I wanted to see changed. And then they essentially took away my voice meeting day one. I did make a motion that meeting to table the item until I was able to be a part of those conversations. And my motion died for lack of second. So nobody would even second my motion just to be able to be a part of the conversation on why are you doing this? And so that motion passed. And now it takes 3 board members to get anything on the agenda. So that was a way of silencing my voice. And so that's been a huge problem. And then now our superintendent just passed another policy at our last board meeting last Monday that limits freedom of speech even more. And so I believe freedom of speech, and this goes for all school districts across the board. I mean, you see podcasts about it all the time, lawsuits of people losing their constitutional First Amendment rights to address their government and to have free speech. And that's a huge problem because a citizen should be able to speak about what their concerns are at a school board meeting.
Yeah.
And they shouldn't be afraid of getting a trespass letter or being arrested because of what they're saying.
Yeah, for sure. You see that I see videos of that all the time where parents will show up to say something and they're like, we're not talking about that today. And he's like, well, I'm here, so we're going to talk about it. And they have cops drag them out of the meeting.
What was the clip? Did we ever
that guy.
play
I love
clip?
that guy.
Man, where he read some of the passages from some of the books they were finding
Yeah.
in there, and they're telling him to stop it, that it's not appropriate. And he's like, well, it's in the library. I'm just reading.
It's not appropriate for me to read it to you, but it's appropriate for kids to read it in the schools.
Yeah, that guy he killed him on that. It was great.
Well, and one thing I've said from day one is people in Godley ISD get 3 minutes to speak. It's 3 minutes.
That's it.
Even if they're yelling at me and calling me all kinds of names and calling me a crazy conspiracy theorist, it's 3 minutes. I can sit there for 3 minutes and listen to what they have to say, like it or not. And so I've never understood the reason to limit that because, like I said, they get 3 minutes of your time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's. Is there been anything else you've ran up against while? We'll
sure
keep
there's
that one.
tons of
We're
stuff.
gonna keep that one for because I'm that's the elephant in the room. So, but we'll hang on to that one. I can tell.
Yeah. That's the one we want to talk about, but we're gonna wait. We're gonna wait on that.
Oh, I lost my train of thought with
Any
that
other?
one.
Yeah, any other obstacles that you've ran up against? And even in the community, have you felt in the community like you've been scarlet lettered? I guess maybe how do you say that? What do you do that? Maybe just not in the school, but just around town.
I definitely feel like my name is tainted, as people call me a Karen, right? And I really don't consider myself a Karen. I'm honestly a very nice person, and I am this is what's really funny. Outside of the political arena, I'm the least confrontational person you'll ever meet. Like I will eat something that's made completely wrong at a restaurant because I do not want to tell the waitress. Like it terrifies me. I do not like confrontation. Except when it comes to politics. And maybe that's being the daughter of a former Vietnam veteran Marine, that I know what soldiers before us gave up for our freedom. And I know that freedom is not free and it's not guaranteed. And so I think that's why I'm so passionate about politics. But outside of the political world, I am non-confrontational. But yeah, I get labeled a Karen because I speak up when I see something that's not right. And I'm not afraid to speak out against that. I do have a lot of supporters, but I really think that they're the silent majority because I get told all the time privately that, hey, I support you, but I can't comment on Facebook because I'm afraid I'll get attacked, or I can't speak at a school board meeting because I'm afraid my student will get retaliated against. And so I know retaliation's a big fear for a lot of people. I know I certainly have faced it. And so I think a lot of my supporters are a silent majority. Obviously, they're out there because I won the election and I had the most votes of any candidate. So,
What was the percent? Do you know the percentage of your what you won by?
I had 701 votes, and I believe Craig Stevenson had around 648. And so he was the second runner-up. So there was 2 seats for the school board. So I was elected, and then Craig Stevenson was reelected. So myself and Craig were the top 2 vote getters. I don't know what the percentage is. I do know it was the most votes in Godley history for a school board candidate. It was also a record turnout. 20% of registered voters voted in that election.
God, that's pathetic.
That is pathetic, y'all, but I had people reach out to me nationwide because 10% is good.
Yeah.
And I had people reach out and say, how the heck did y'all get 20% voter turnout? That is pathetic, but that is insanely high statistically.
So the bond
Yeah.
probably drove.
That bond they wanted to pass here was insane.
Yeah,
What was there?
$889 million. Is that?
That's wild, dude.
Yeah. So
889 million, yeah. And with interest over $1 billion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I try to put that in context with the Panther Island project that Fort Worth is trying to do because that's a major rehab of the downtown area of Fort Worth, right? Building an entire island and buildings and everything else. They put it off because they couldn't come up with $1 billion in funding. That's for a major civil engineering program, and you guys wanted almost $1 billion for.
I don't
schools.
even think the new Cowboy Stadium costed $1 billion.
I think it.
so
I think it was under $1 billion.
Yeah, that's
for
crazy.
some reason, while that was going on, something had popped on my feed about Churchill Downs, and Churchill Downs had added 12,000 seats. The Kentucky Derby, they had asked, and it was $200 million is what they had spent on that
12,000
project.
seats.
Now, obviously, the economy's different; things cost different in Kentucky versus here. But
It's not that
200 million versus and I'm sure I'll get some hate for this, but my opinion on the bond when it went through was a blank check. It was asking for a blank check.
Well, I mean, all I saw allocated was 500 million of that. I never could get an answer on what the other almost 400 million was for.
Really?
So I don't honestly know what the other. I know that there was 3 elementary schools, there was renovations to the middle school and high school, but all of that was itemized was 400 million.
Yeah.
And so I think it was highly not transparent. Unfortunately, I don't see them being super transparent with this upcoming bond either. I'm sure people know I fought to get the public into those bond meetings. I feel like it should have been open to the public. If your bond failed for lack of transparency, what better way to be transparent than to let the government or let the citizens come into your bond planning meetings and see the process from start to finish? That didn't happen. And so,
Well, you'd think the people that are paying the bill should have a right to go in there and have an opinion on what you're going to spend the money on.
Right. My when that was all going on, what I took from it, and maybe I'm wrong, but what I took from it was we need this much for this project, and the rest of the money is so when other projects come up, we don't have to ask you for this money again, which bothered me because in my opinion is no, you come to the people every time and ask for that money.
well, and what bothered me was that the 10-year plan. Our economy is really volatile right now. I mean, we've seen it. Just look at Pleasant View Elementary when it opened. It was supposed to be surrounded by houses. And when that school was built, there was no houses. And Dr. Deere in a meeting asked the developer, hey, what's up? We feel like this elementary school's on an island. Where's all the houses? And he just said, they're all sold, but nobody's building right now because of costs. So we have a highly volatile economy. We cannot project 10 years out right now.
No.
We just don't know what the economy is going to do.
Yeah. To assume you're going to know what 10 years in the future is going to be for your economy is asinine anyway. Nobody's going to know. Because there could be a war, there could be a depression. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen?
And
this place is so screwed up anyway.
That was my at the time. Like, well, that was why I say, come to me as you need it. Come to the citizens as you need it.
Yeah.
And then just kind of I felt it was lying by omission, if that's the way, by saying it won't raise your taxes. Because I guess, it won't raise the percentage of your taxes. You're just going to pay it longer. That's why I understood it.
Right.
You may, that may not be right.
You will pay. Yeah. So the thing that people need to understand is bond debt is paid for by tax dollars, and that's principal and interest. So the tax rate might not change, but the tax rate is really irrelevant. Because you are talking about the value goes up on a home, even if the tax rate doesn't go up, the money that you spend, your tax dollars are going to increase. And taxing entities do elect to the CAD boards, to the Central Appraisal District boards. So that's actually something I just fought in Godley ISD and in Johnson County. There was a big movement to get citizens elected to the Central Appraisal District Board. And we were successful. I believe that there's 3 citizens that have secured seats. And 4 would be a majority. So that is really great for transparency there. That was something I pushed for in Godley ISD, and I was very fortunate that I had 2 other board members, Dennis McFarland and Marissa Abbott, that voted with me. And we were able to give half of the votes to one of the citizens that needed them to secure a seat. But yeah, there's a connection between taxing entities and the Central Appraisal District Board. And so the Central Appraisal the Central Appraisal District sets the values, right? And so you have them setting the values, and then you have the taxing entity with the tax rate. Together, that's the taxes you pay. So a bond might not increase your tax rate, but if you have your central appraisers are raising the values, then you're raising revenue, tax revenue.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always sneaky the way they do that. Well, we didn't raise your taxes. Yeah, but you increased the value of my house by $30,000. Now my taxes almost doubled. So yeah, you did something.
Yeah. So the elephant in the room here. We just made all kinds of we made national news, local news.
Yep.
I think there's some confusion. I know I had, as I was kind of looking into stuff, I saw a Houston network that said that. Let's just explain. Let me just have you explain it first. What the recent news?
Well, I mean, talking about bonds and the long range planning facility is a great segue into this topic because truthfully, that's what started all of this. So at these long range planning meetings, which are bond planning meetings, I was wanting the public to have access to those meetings. I did not know until after the first meeting that the public was denied access. I had a citizen reach out to me and say that the superintendent, Dr. Deere, would not let her in the door. And so I immediately called TASB Legal the next day because I felt like that should have been open to the public. The attorney I spoke to said that because that's public business, those should have been open to the public. So I reached out to the superintendent. I went directly to him and I said, hey, this is what TASB Legal has told me. This is how I am reading the law, and I truly believe these meetings should be open to the public. He did not respond. I copied our school board attorney, and then a week later, our attorney got back to me and said that he could not speak to me as a school board member unless the superintendent gave him permission. So I was not able to speak to our attorney to get their interpretation of the law. And then a week later, the superintendent reached back out to me and stood by his position of why he believed the public was able to not have access to those meetings. So the second meeting was on October 25th, and some citizens reached out to me and said that they wanted to attend the meeting. And I said, well, I was told that they were not let in on October 4th, the first meeting. I said, but you're willing to try. And so they did. So there was 2 citizens that tried to attend that meeting and video recorded them trying to get in to see the bond planning meeting, and they were denied access. And of course, that video blew up on social media. One of the persons that was attacking us for trying to get into that meeting made some comments and some accusatory comments, had asked for us to get trespassed. And so there was kind of a cat fight, if you will, on Facebook. I tend to stay out of those, so I just got my popcorn and watched them go at it. And I guess some of the comments, she was bragging about the businesses that she had. And a citizen was like, I'm just curious what she does because she's got a lot of time to volunteer in the schools and she's on all these committees. So I'm curious what businesses she has that gives her that much free time. And that's when they found out that she was an escort. And they reached out to me and they said, hey, just Google this email address. It's for so-and-so. And so I Googled the email address and I was blown away at what I found, just literally on a Google search with her email address. So I reached out to Families Engaged, and they're an organization that works with independent school districts. They're pro-education, they're pro-teachers, and they're also pro-parents. And so they're just advocates that help school districts, and they also help parents. So I reached out to them to find out. First of all, I wanted to make sure it was true. Wanted to make sure that someone hadn't just hacked into her and created all these accounts. So they pulled some court records. They ran a background check. They found multiple convictions for prostitution. They found court documents that solidified the prostitution activity. There was a restraining order. And so several other things that validated our concerns. So I immediately called Dr. Deere, the superintendent at Godley ISD, needed to have a meeting with him to present him all of this evidence. And so that was on a Monday. On a Wednesday, we were able to meet. And I brought the 2 ladies from Families Engaged with me to the meeting. And at first, he only wanted to meet with me, and he refused to meet with them. And I said, hey, I don't have the packet of information. I did not do the investigation. I said, I've heard about it. I haven't seen it. I haven't touched it. I don't have it. If you want to see this investigation, you've got to meet with these ladies. And so, and I did let them know that if Dr. Deere was unwilling to meet with them, they were planning to go to the media, but they wanted to give the district an opportunity to do the right thing first and spare themselves the embarrassment. So we had a meeting. We presented Dr. Deere all of the evidence. One of our things that we wanted to see happen was to have her removed from the volunteer list. We don't care what she did in her personal life. That's not our concern. But she had access to children, and that was the concern. With the business activity and the prostitution and the escort services that she did, we didn't know what kind of clients she had, and that's a safety concern, especially with trafficking as prevalent as it is today. Unfortunately, Dr. Deere did not just immediately call his chief of police. He did not remove her from the committees. Instead, he attacked me personally.
Wow.
He said that I withheld information from the school district, that I hampered their investigation, and that he could find nothing to substantiate my claims. Obviously, I was super shocked because I know that Dr. Deere and I have not seen eye to eye on a lot of issues, but I thought surely we can find common ground in child safety. And I thought surely we can work together on this. So I was completely blown away at his response. So I called the Texas Rangers and notified them of what was going on. They said, unfortunately, they can't get involved unless you've gone through all of the levels at the state level. So they told me to go outside of Godley ISD Police and reach out to Godley PD. And then if Godley PD was unwilling to help me, to reach out to Johnson County Sheriff's Office. If the Sheriff's Office cannot help, then the Texas Rangers could get involved. So after going to Godley PD, the next day, I get an email from the superintendent that she's removed from all of the committees. So it was truly going up that chain of command that got something done. However, this was 2+ weeks after we brought this to Dr. Deere's attention. Wow. And because he was not responsive to me or to Families Engaged when they reached out to him during that time to ask him if he needed additional information, they were fully cooperative and willing to help, and he just did not answer them. So they went to the news media. The news media reached out to me for a statement, and so I gave my statement to them. Of course, I have no control over how Fox 4 spun the article and spun the, sex sells, unfortunately. So that was the angle they used. Truthfully, I was hoping that there would be accountability on the administration and how they failed to do their due diligence, to do an investigation, and to have her removed themselves. So I was not happy with how Fox 4 spun it, but then I understand they needed ratings. So that's kind of why I've been going on all these podcasts, is to let people know that we did try to do the right thing. We did handle it at the proper level with the superintendent, and he failed. He failed here. So any embarrassment that Godley ISD is facing and any embarrassment that this poor family is facing, it falls on Dr. Deere's shoulders.
So what's the deal with this guy that runs this place? Dr. Deere, is that his name?
Yes.
Is he some kind of communist or something?
Well, I mean, he doesn't love free speech. I'll tell you that.
Doesn't sound like it.
He doesn't love free speech.
Sounds like a real authoritarian.
Unfortunately, I think that he's just been given too much authority, and he's been allowed to have sole authority over so many areas for so long that, I mean, absolute power corrupts absolutely.
For sure.
Right? And so, a lot of this falls on the school board as well, that over the years they've given him more and more control.
This is the superintendent?
Superintendent, yes, Dr. Deere. Mm-hmm.
So, just because I guess what Fox 4, I don't even know it was Fox 4. I've watched several clips of this, so
Fox
I shouldn't
4
say Fox
originated.
So one of the clips that I watched said that the convictions, that the reason that they didn't come up in the background check is because they were misdemeanor convictions.
Yeah.
Because to be honest with you, that's the part that bothers me more so, just because I feel like somebody missed doing their job. I don't want to get into the aspects of if a sex worker is the best one to find the curriculum for sex ed or anything. I don't want to even get into that.
Yeah.
What bothers me is...
She is a pro. Okay.
Well,
no, I'm just joking.
What bothers me is, and maybe that's common to overlook a misdemeanor for that not to come up, but that's the part that bothers me, that the background checks I thought were supposed to be done.
Well, and according to the DPS, misdemeanors do show up. So you have the district saying misdemeanors don't show up. You have DPS saying they do show up. I'm not sure what the answer is there. I haven't seen her background check. And honestly, I was not faulting the district for her slipping through the cracks and being there. But once it was brought to their attention, it should have been handled immediately. Yeah, sure. And it should have been taken seriously while an investigation was being done. And anyone that knows anything about family code, those complaints are supposed to be taken seriously. And unfortunately, when it comes to family code, you're supposed to be guilty until proven innocent because there are children involved. And so she should have immediately been temporarily removed from committees and temporarily removed from volunteering pending an investigation. And then if she was cleared, then she could be put back on. But that's not what happened. Also, the ISD police chief was not notified for a solid week after we brought the complaints to the superintendent. He should have been their first call. And in fact, in our meeting, we said, we hope that as soon as we leave here, you call Chief Quinteros and you let your ISD police know what is going on and what these complaints are so they can handle this investigation. Not sure why that wasn't done, but that was not done.
Maybe this, I'm just going to say it. Maybe this guy's a client, the superintendent.
I hope not.
I'll say it because I'm not from this town, so I don't give a shit.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, today, before we did this, I got on YouTube and I typed in Godley, Texas. And I was just curious what the YouTube clips are. And it's this story, and every story that comes up, it's either new house construction or every story that comes up being some kind of negative spin for it. There are several of them up there. I hate it because, I'm from here. I've lived my entire adult life here and most of my childhood, or a good chunk of my childhood. It sucks that that's the stories that come up in this town. It sucks that even became a story instead of being handled. Possibly, I'm sure this woman has kids.
Yes.
Or this family has kids. Like, it's got to be brutal for them. I don't know if they're still in this public school. I know if I was in something like this, my kids would not. Well, I would never be in this situation.
No.
But if something would have been, I would have pulled. I mean, it's just horrible for the family.
Was she? I don't have a problem with somebody doing whatever it is they did, and people should be forgiven for the mistakes they make in the past, right? But wasn't she still active?
It was very current and still active. So it wasn't just her past. If it was her past, then that's a totally different story. Mm-hmm. But she was active. It was current. There was a Twitter proving that she was still active. In fact, when all this news came about, her Twitter was locked down. It's now back wide open. And she is profiting off of her new fame.
Oh, I bet.
Well, we saw that with the OnlyFans not too long ago with the teacher.
Yeah.
She made $1 million. She's like, I'm done being a teacher because I made it now. Thanks.
And like I said, I'm not going to judge her personal life, but when you are volunteering in the public education system and you're around kids, that's where I have an issue. Yeah. Do whatever you want to do in your personal life. Leave the kids out of it. I would never do that line of business, but if I were, I think I would know that I can't be a PTO mom or a public school teacher or a volunteer in the schools.
Or at the very least, know that if you are in those positions and you go to pissing people off, they're going to start digging into you. And that sounds like you get into a social media spat with someone, they're gonna dig in, and everything's out there.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I hate that it's gone on here. I hate that it's gone on in this town that's what it's like I said, YouTube Godley now. See what pops up.
It's highly unfortunate because Godley has had some really negative press over the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And it's because the people at the top are unwilling to work with their taxpayers, and they forget that they're not private professionals. They work for the taxpayers. And so if you're going to run tyrannically and not listen to your citizens, there's going to be pushback. And I think we've seen this since COVID, where people are just fed up. They're fed up.
Yeah, it's I think COVID opened up so many people's eyes too, like you were saying earlier, local government and how much that does really affect you. It's not just a position of no consequence any longer. I guess it never was, but it sure opened people's eyes up. So let's I think I don't know if there's much more on that topic.
No. Like I said, it is unfortunate, but really the blame should be with the superintendent. He was the first to be notified. He could have handled it correctly, and he chose not to. So any embarrassment that this district or that family is facing, he is the one to blame.
That's the part for me, just to know that you could have squashed it in a sense.
Real early
or at
on.
least, real early on, and didn't have the foresight to do that. Bothers me.
How long does this guy stay in office?
He has been a superintendent here for 12 years, and then he was a principal here before that. So he's been here, I think, 18 years.
No. Yeah, I don't.
Does he have I mean, it's got to have like a contract or term of service.
Yes, he has a 5-year contract. Every year he has a superintendent evaluation, which actually his next evaluation is this coming Monday, December 11th. So if you live in Godley, it is open to the public. It's a school board meeting. Come and sign up for public comment and voice your concerns. If you love the guy, voice that. If you have problems and you have issues, then voice that. But citizens really need to show up to these school board meetings and share their concerns or their praise. But it's sad when you only see 2 or 3 people show up at these school board meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And so much of it is the fight that you've gone through where it's like, well, you show up and be shut down. It's crazy to me because I remember at one point in time, like school boards and teachers saying, well, nobody shows up to this stuff. And maybe people still really aren't in a whole, but there are a lot of areas over this country where school board meetings are being flooded with people. And now that people are showing up, it's, well, we didn't really want you here. We just wanted, we just wanted to gripe about you not being here, really. That's what it feels like to me. And then now to look for ways to not let those people talk.
Yeah, they just want the illusion of people showing up, right? Well, we're going to do, you had a chance to show up, you didn't show up, so this is the policy we put in. Maybe next time show up. And then when people actually do start showing up, they're like, oh, God damn it. they're gonna fuck everything up.
Yeah.
I think a lot of politicians like the illusion of open government,
Yeah,
but they don't
that's it.
really want to be open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it perpetuates the myth that democracy works.
Yeah.
So that's my thing.
So what's your vision for Godley ISD, for your position, for the community? What do you think going forward? What would you like to see, I guess, going forward?
This guy running for office?
Number one, I would like to see free speech. I mean, truthfully, I would like a citizen to be able to show up and have 3 minutes to speak about anything. I don't like that we limit it to only agenda items. In fact, in our region, we are only one of 5 districts that limits public comment to agenda items.
Really?
There is over 70 districts just in our region that allow non-agenda item public comment. So we're already more restrictive than most. And then we're even more restrictive than that because we don't allow criticism. We don't allow, honestly, it's unconstitutional because in the Constitution it says that a citizen has the right to petition their government for redress of grievances and remonstrance. And so that is complaining, right? They have the right to complain to their government. Yep. And if they're not allowing that's just unconstitutional. So I would love to see free speech. And I would like to see more transparent and open government. I would like to see our documents for every school board meeting be posted for the public. I've personally been sharing those public documents for the last several months for school board meetings so that people are more prepared on what's going to be talked about. But I shouldn't have to do that. The school district should be putting that out. Yeah. Fort Worth ISD releases a 400-page packet with their agenda for the public.
Oh, wow.
They do. They're completely a lot more, and there's a lot of crap going on in Fort Worth ISD, but they're a lot more transparent than Godley. I think with transparency and open government and free speech, you're going to solve a lot of issues because in order for democracy to work, there has to be debates on both sides of the aisle.
Well, I think, and to that point, like that immediately makes people think you're hiding it. The way it's handled, mm-hmm. It makes people think you're hiding stuff from me. You don't let me come in, especially after the bond fails like it is, and now this deal, where they're not. It just makes people think you've got something nefarious going on.
Yeah, you should be able to at least go in there and go, you guys fucking suck, You got to be at least be able to do that, That's your basic right as a citizen of this country.
Those exact words.
Yeah.
So,
do you have any allies on the school board, or are you by yourself?
I've pretty much been by myself. However, the last school board meeting, like I said, I had 2 board members vote with me to give some of our votes to Citizens for the CAD board. I also had one board member vote with me against the policy change for public meetings, which I believed to be totally Orwellian. It was talking about not recognizing people outside the district, not allowing our school board meetings to be politicized, not allowing, critical speech, and then it goes into all the things a district can do if you do these things, right? They can trespass you, they can ask you to leave.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and so I was completely against that policy change, but I did have a school board member vote no with me, and up until this point, I've been the only dissenting vote in a lot of areas.
How many people are on the board?
There's 7 school board members, and then the superintendent.
Is he a voting?
He is not a voting member. Okay. So if there's a tie, it fails.
Okay.
Unlike on the city council, the mayor is the voting, the tiebreaker. Yes.
So have you, I don't know the name of it, but the classes that are down in Austin that new school boards go to?
Yes.
What is that?
That would be TASB training, Texas Association of School Boards. They do, a new school board trustee is required to have so many hours. I believe it's 30 hours of continuing education. So I took a lot of those this summer, and TASB has its own issues too, but the training is very helpful.
So the reason I ask you about that, because I was informed that in that training, one of the things that is told to new school board members is that you should present a unified front in front every time you come into the open.
Yeah, so that's going to be your team of 8 training, and that is a required annual training that TASB requires. However, we just actually had our team of 8 training yesterday. It's the first time I've been involved in a team of 8 training, and I actually was impressed with the presenters. They did not push that. And so some of the training that I saw at the Summer Leadership Institute, TASB training I went to this summer, they talked about that. You always vote in a block because you don't want the taxpayers to be confused, and you don't want to make it think like you don't know what's going on, or and so that
is a weird.
Yeah, so
that's weird.
So basically, with this SLI training this summer, one of the presenters was saying, if you don't vote unanimously, then it's hard for your taxpayers to trust you, because you're not even sure of your position on the board. And so I don't agree with that.
That is garbage.
Yeah, I don't agree with that at all.
Garbage.
But one thing that in the training yesterday, they talked about, you're not always going to have a unanimous vote, but we can be civil, and we can have a nice civil debate, and we can each tell our side of our opinions. I think everyone has the right to their own opinion, and at the end of the day, it's up to a vote, right? And so I might be outvoted. That's just how it is. But I think everyone should be able to speak their opinion.
That doesn't even make any sense, because people are so used to the idea of the whole Democratic thing where the majority rules and all that stuff. So if you have a divided school board, that's not going to confuse people. They're just going to go, okay, well, that side obviously has more support than the other side. It's going to lead people to ask more questions than anything.
I think it's
but that's probably what it is. They don't want people asking questions.
I think it's just perception.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's the
it's just
people
communism.
are too dumb. It's
communism,
the whole. Yes. it's the whole why podcasts are taken out and taking over and corporate media is dying, is because people are too dumb to realize that maybe their views on that board that differ. So we just tell everybody. So isn't there a school in North Texas? I don't know if that's saying no, they're not going to send their school board members to that TASB. Have you heard anything on that?
Yes, South Lake Carroll ISD just left TASB. And so they're with TEA, which is Texans for Educational Excellence, I believe is what that stands for.
So this is not like a state law or something that says you got to go do this.
No, unfortunately, it's just kind of a monopoly that TASB has. And I do know that there is perks to TASB, like teacher retirement. You have TEA legal, so you have access to legal. And so I do understand that there's perks. Of course, I've looked into the alternative, Texas Educational Excellence, TEE, and some of the major funders aren't a whole lot better, unfortunately. So
it seems to me that all that training is garbage. I'm
sure there's something to it.
See, I've always been a free thinker my whole life, to my detriment when I was in public school, honestly, because I was the teacher's worst nightmare. Why do I need to learn this?
Yeah.
But I've always been a free thinker. I love that kind of training because I want to know, first of all, I love debate, and I want to know how to better debate, and how better to debate than to fully understand the other side and what their beliefs and arguments are. I like the training because I sit there with my notebook and I'm like, bull crap, taking notes. So I enjoyed it. I didn't agree with half of it, but I did enjoy it. I learned a lot.
What's scary about it is, and I think I would be exactly the way you are right now if I was personally in that. But what's scary is how many people get elected to that position that just go, well, this must be the way it is.
I think, too, it takes a very strong backbone to be how I thought up until this point on an island, right? Mm-hmm. And to be by myself and singled out. It takes a lot of backbone to be a dissenting voice. It's a lot easier to go along. Yeah. And there's not a lot of strong people out there that are willing to stand up, even if they're standing alone, but to stand up for what's right and for what they feel is true to their convictions and their beliefs.
What are you looking up?
I was just looking at what the Texas Trustee Institute, with what they what they teach and everything. I mean, it doesn't like go into what the
right.
course is, but it seems like it's all something that a new trustee would want to know, like how a board operates, the school law 101, stuff like that.
So one thing, and I think you've said it without saying it, one thing that Morgan said when she decided to run was, it was, or one day her kid's gonna ask you, did you know all this stuff was going on? You didn't do anything. And when she said it, it brought me back to, I'm not sure if you're familiar with, I think it's Yao Ming. Is it Yao Ming? She escaped from North Korea.
No, that's not what it is at all.
No, hold on.
Yao Ming is like a basketball player.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, who's the woman that escaped from North Korea?
I don't know what her name is.
Anyway,
but
whatever
it's not Yao Ming.
Yeah. Okay, I'm dumb. I told you that already. No, anyway, she's escaped North Korea and spent time in China hiding out, and then it's something parks, maybe Yao something parks. Yeah. Anyway, and eventually ended up in the U.S. and went to college and realized some of the stuff that was going on. I think she went to Columbia and realized some of the culture war type stuff that was going on and some of the stuff, the communist kind of stuff that was being spread. And in thinking, I guess, talked to her mother, and her mother didn't know any difference in North Korea and how North Korea, and it sounds hyperbolic to compare us to North Korea, but the generation, her grandmother's generation, did know life a different way. They did know that, and they didn't do anything.
Right.
And so then you have two generations behind that did not know anything but this crazy authoritarian style deal. So that's something that kind of resonated with me. Like, well, one day my kids come back and say, "Did you know what was going on?" And maybe it sounds like a far jump, right, from where we're at now.
No, it only takes a generation to lose your country.
Right, but it's just incrementally some of the stuff that's going on that we would not that wouldn't have been allowed 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and lots of people have stuck their head in the sand and allowed this stuff to go on. So anyway, I assume that you probably had that thought as well at some time. It's awesome to be able to talk to people like you, like Morgan, like Todd, some of these people that are saying, hey, slow down. We need to look at this. We need to figure out what's going on. We need to have some accountability with the people. So from me, Exodus, thank you for doing that. It's much appreciated.
Yeah, you're welcome. I mean, I've always been of the mentality, give them an inch and they're going to take a mile, right? Absolutely. And we've seen that with so many of our culture wars. We've given them an inch and they've taken a mile, and then they keep taking and they keep taking. And it's the same way with freedom. You know, you take away someone's free speech at a school board meeting. That's step one, right?
Yeah.
And so just understanding that freedom isn't free. We're not guaranteed freedom. And we're on a very slippery slope in America and even in the great state of Texas. And so if it's up to the citizens to stand up, and I mean, that's what democracy is, right? It's power by the people for the people. The people need to stand up. The people need to attend these meetings. They need to speak out.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yep.
I don't have anything else. Do you got
anything you want to plug?
You want to plug anything? You said Godly Patriots?
Yes, you can join me. My Facebook group is Godly Patriots, and I'll make sure to send that to you guys so y'all can post it in this podcast. But you can find me on Godly Patriots. That's where I've shared all about the meetings and all about what's going on here in Godly. And also make sure that you show up next Monday, December 11th at 5 p.m. to the Godly High School. they are doing superintendent evaluations. So show up next Monday to Godley High School for the superintendent evaluation. You can find more about that on Godley Patriots as well. And make sure to sign up for public comment to give your opinion on the superintendent.
Be sure to tell him he fucking sucks.
Anyway, God, anyway, we should also say that your words today here are your words.
Yes.
And that you
Yes.
don't speak for, I'll let you.
Right, yeah, I represent Kayla Lain. I don't speak on behalf of the district or the school board. These are my personal opinions.
Okay.
All right. Well, that's it.
Well, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank y'all for having me.
Thank you, Kayla. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Next
Thanks.
time.